Cold Tuesday morning in Cleveland. I'm sitting across from Victor Lorne, watching him flip through my promotion request like it's junk mail. 5 years at Steelmark Rail Systems. 5 years of covering his mistakes, fixing broken freight schedules, and keeping our biggest contracts alive. All of it crammed into a binder he barely glances at. Victor looks up with that fake smile that screams this meeting is over. "Your work's been solid, Elias," he says, "but you're not leadership material yet." Not leadership material. The words hit like a punch to the gut, but I keep my face blank. I've been here too long to fall apart over his opinion. I nod slowly, but inside, I'm calculating. I'm the guy who rebuilt this place from scratch when the old operations manager quit without warning. I created the rail maps that keep every freight line running. I saved our Rockland freight contract when everyone else gave up. I understand, I say quietly, but I don't understand. And as I stand up to leave, I realize something has shifted inside me. This isn't a disappointment anymore. This is the moment everything changes. Walking out of Victor's office, I pass the glass-walled operations director room I've been eyeing for years. Empty, as always. The afternoon light streams through those windows, showing nothing but my own tired reflection staring back. I am 48 years old, 20 years in rail logistics. The last 5 spent making Victor look good while I stayed invisible. The empty office mocks me. All those late nights, all those weekends spent fixing freight disasters that Victor took credit for in quarterly reviews. I stop and stare at that glass wall. Behind it should be someone who actually knows how the rail system works. Someone who understands the intricate web of freight schedules, maintenance windows, and vendor relationships that keep Steelmark alive. Someone like me. But Victor sees me as just another worker bee. Good enough to fix problems, not good enough to be promoted above them. I press my palm against the cool glass. The reflection shows a man who's been playing by rules that don't apply to him. Not anymore. I turn away from the empty office and head toward the parking lot. My mind is already shifting into something Victor won't recognize. Standing by my truck in the employee parking lot, I make 2 decisions that will change everything. First, I'm canceling the weekend fishing trip I planned with my son. Not because of work this time, but because I need to prepare for what's coming. I've spent too many weekends fixing Victor's emergencies while my family waited at home. Second, and more important, I'm done writing the daily rail maps that keep this place running. The handwritten schedules, maintenance codes, and vendor contacts that I update every morning before anyone else arrives. The maps that live in my desk drawer and nowhere else. The maps that Victor has never seen but depends on completely. These aren't just schedules. They're the DNA of Steelmark's entire operation. Every freight route, every maintenance window, every backup plan when things go wrong. I wrote them all. I update them constantly. And starting tomorrow, I will stop. Let Victor figure out leadership without his safety net. I climb into my truck and drive home, already imagining the chaos that's coming. For 5 years, I've been the invisible foundation holding up Victor's reputation. Time to see what happens when that foundation cracks. Let me tell you about those maps. When I started at Steelmark 5 years ago, the place was a disaster. The previous operations manager, Jerry, had quit without leaving a single note. No handoff, no documentation, just an empty desk and a mess of angry phone calls from freight companies whose schedules were falling apart. I spent my first 3 months here staying until midnight, mapping out the entire rail system from scratch. Not the official company flowcharts that hung on the wall gathering dust. Real maps. The kind that shows which maintenance crew to call when Track 7 floods. Which backup route to use when Rockland Freight needs an emergency shipment. Which vendor actually delivers on time, and which ones need constant pressure. I documented every workaround, every shortcut, every relationship that kept freight moving through our hub. Hundreds of handwritten pages that became the invisible backbone of Steelmark's success. Victor never asked to see them. Never even knew they existed. He just showed up for meetings and took credit when things ran smoothly. Those maps live in my desk drawer. Locked. The only copies exist in my head and my handwriting. No digital backups. No shared files. Just me and 5 years of hard-won knowledge about keeping this rail system alive. Tomorrow, that knowledge stays locked up. The next morning, I didn't arrive at my usual 6:30. Instead, I stroll in at 8:15, making sure everyone sees me clock in late. The shift supervisor, Miguel, gives me a curious look, but I just nod and head to my desk. By 9 a.m., the requests start coming in. Tyrell from Freight Scheduling stops by looking worried. Hey Elias, we've got a problem with the morning cargo routes. The usual backup plan isn't working. I lean back in my chair and give him a casual shrug. That sounds like a scheduling department issue. I say, I'm just operations maintenance now. Tyrell's face shows confusion. For 5 years, I've been the guy who solved every crisis before it became a real problem. Now I'm acting like it's not my job anymore. Which, according to Victor, it isn't. By 10:30, my phone starts buzzing with texts from Victor. Probably wondering why the morning freight reports look different than usual. I glance at the messages, but don't open them. For the first time in years, I'm not jumping every time Victor needs something fixed. Maya from procurement walks over around 11 a.m. Elias, the Rockland Freight contact list seems outdated. Do you have the current vendor info? Try the shared drive. I tell her, knowing perfectly well that the real contact information only exists in my locked maps. By noon, the cracks are starting to show. The Rockland Freight contract, our biggest account worth $3 million annually, is hitting snags that would normally be invisible because I'd handle them before anyone noticed. Their afternoon cargo shipment is delayed because the usual track maintenance window shifted, but nobody knows about the backup route I mapped out 2 years ago. The freight supervisor calls looking confused, and I listen to Miguel trying to explain a solution that doesn't exist on any official document. Rockland Freight isn't just another client. They're the contract that keeps Steelmark profitable. When their shipments flow smoothly through our hub, everyone looks good. When they don't, heads roll. For 5 years, I've been the invisible hand making sure their freight never gets stuck in our system. My phone buzzes again. This time it's a direct call from Victor, not just a text. I let it go to voicemail. Jace, the lead machinist, approaches my desk around 1 p.m. Elias, Track 3's alignment sensor is acting up again. You have that calibration sequence you wrote up? I pretend to think about it. I believe that's documented in the official maintenance manual. I say, knowing damn well it isn't. The real fix involves a specific sequence of adjustments that I figured out through trial and error and never shared with anyone. By 2 p.m., 3 different systems are showing strain. Nothing catastrophic yet, just the early signs of an operation running without its hidden support system. Wednesday morning brings the first real collapse. I arrive at 8 a.m. to find Miguel in full crisis mode. Track 3 is completely down, the Rockland morning shipment is stuck in the yard, and the backup routes everyone thought existed are nowhere to be found on any official document. Elias, thank God you're here, Miguel says, rushing over. We need that emergency routing plan you always use for Track 3 situations. I sip my coffee slowly and look at the chaos building in the freight yard. What emergency routing plan? I ask. Miguel's face goes blank. The backup routes you always. I think you might be confusing me with someone else, I say calmly. I'm just operations maintenance. Routing decisions are above my pay grade. By 9 a.m., Victor storms down from his office, his face red and his jaw tight. The Rockland Freight manager has been calling every 15 minutes, threatening to take their business elsewhere if we can't get their cargo moving. Elias, Victor shouts across the floor. Conference room. Now. I finish my coffee first, then stroll toward the conference room like I have all the time in the world. Behind me, I can hear Tyrell frantically searching through filing cabinets for documentation that doesn't exist anywhere except my locked desk drawer. The morning freight reports are showing delays that haven't happened in 5 years. Systems are backing up in ways that Victor has never seen because I always prevented them from reaching his desk. For the first time since I started here, Steelmark Rail Systems is operating without me holding it together. In the conference room, Victor paces like a caged animal. His usually perfect hair is disheveled, and there are sweat stains under his arms despite the air conditioning. Elias, we have a serious problem with Rockland, he says, trying to keep his voice level. I need you to fix this situation immediately. I lean back in the conference room chair and study his face. 5 years of watching this man take credit for my solutions. 5 years of him dismissing my potential while depending on my expertise. Now he needs me, and he doesn't even realize how much. What seems to be the issue? I ask innocently. Victor's eye twitches. The routing system is down. The backup plans aren't working. Rockland is threatening to cancel their contract. Have you checked the official procedures manual? I suggest. The manual doesn't have the specific fixes for this situation, Victor admits through gritted teeth. You're the one who always handles these emergencies. I nod thoughtfully. Well, all the information should be documented somewhere. Maybe check the shared drive. Victor stares at me like I'm speaking a foreign language. For 5 years, he's never had to actually solve these problems himself. He just knew that somehow, they always got solved. Elias, he says more quietly, I need you to handle this like you always do. Handle what exactly? I ask. I thought I wasn't leadership material. The silence stretches between us like a live wire. By the time I get home Wednesday evening, my phone shows 73 missed calls. Most are from Victor, but some are from Harriet Kane, the COO, and even one from our Rockland contact directly. I leave the phone in my truck and walk into my house. For the first time in 5 years, I'm not carrying the weight of Steelmark's problems on my shoulders. My son Danny is in the garage working on his go-kart engine, and instead of rushing to return urgent work calls, I grab my tools and join him. Dad, can you help me with this carburetor? Danny asks. He's 16 and has been trying to get this old go-kart running for months. Absolutely, I say, pulling up a stool beside him. We spent the next 3 hours completely rebuilding the engine. Danny explains each part as we work through it, and I realize how much he's learned on his own while I was busy being indispensable at Steelmark. The kid has real mechanical instincts. My phone keeps buzzing from the truck, but I don't even think about checking it. For once, I'm exactly where I need to be. Danny gets the engine purring smoothly around 9 p.m., and his face lights up with pride. Thanks for helping me finish it, Dad, he says. Thanks for reminding me what actually matters, I tell him. Inside the house, I sleep better than I have in months. No middle-of-the-night anxiety about tomorrow's freight schedules. No dreams about fixing other people's emergencies. Just solid, peaceful sleep. Thursday morning, I'm summoned to the executive boardroom. Not the small conference room where Victor usually holds meetings, but the big one with the polished mahogany table and the view of the freight yard. Harriet Kane sits at the head of the table, her silver hair pulled back and her expression unreadable. Victor paces near the windows, looking like he hasn't slept. This is my first time meeting Harriet face-to-face, though I've heard she's the one who actually runs Steelmark while the CEO plays golf. Elias, Harriet says without preamble. We have a situation. I take the seat across from her and wait. No nervous fidgeting, no eager-to-please energy. Just calm attention. Rockland Freight is threatening to terminate their contract, she continues. Their cargo has been delayed for 2 days, and our standard procedures aren't resolving the issues. Victor stops pacing. He's the only one who knows how to fix these specific problems, he blurts out. Harriet's eyes stay on me. Is that accurate? I choose my words carefully. I've developed some familiarity with our system's quirks over the years. Can you resolve the Rockland situation? She asks directly. With the proper authority and resources, yes, I say. The room goes quiet. Harriet leans forward slightly. What kind of authority are we talking about? I've been waiting 5 years for this question. Time to find out what I'm really worth. Victor jumps in before I can answer Harriet's question. The promotion is yours, Elias, he says desperately. Operations supervisor, salary increase, whatever you want. Just fix the Rockland problem now. I look at Victor for a long moment, then turn back to Harriet. I appreciate the offer, I say calmly, but I'm not interested in a supervisor position anymore. Both of them freeze. Victor's mouth actually drops open. I've spent 5 years fixing problems that were above my supposed skill level. I continue. Being handed a title now feels like too little, too late. Harriet's expression doesn't change, but I can see her calculating behind those sharp eyes. What would interest you? She asks. This is the moment I've been building toward. Honestly, I'm exploring other opportunities. Victor's face goes from red to pale. Other opportunities? Chicago Central Rail offered me a senior operations position, I say. It's not technically a lie. I did get a recruitment call from them 6 months ago that I never followed up on. Better pay, better benefits, and full operational control. Harriet's pen taps once against the mahogany table. I see. The silence stretches out like a held breath. Victor looks like he might throw up. He's finally understanding that his safety net might actually disappear. What would it take to keep you at Steelmark? Harriet asks directly. I lean back in the leather chair. After 5 years of being told I wasn't ready for leadership, it's time to test exactly how ready they think I am now. I'd need full operational control, I tell Harriet. Not supervisor level, director level, with the authority to hire my own team and implement real changes. Victor's face twitches. Director? That's a huge jump from. Harriet cuts him off with a look. Continue, Elias. I'd want to report directly to you, not through middle management, I say, glancing at Victor. And I'd need the compensation package to match the responsibility. That seems reasonable, Harriet says. Victor looks like he just swallowed glass. There's one more condition, I add. Victor stays in his current role. Both of them stare at me. Victor's confusion is obvious, but Harriet's expression sharpens with interest. You want to keep your current supervisor? She asks. Victor's good at what he does, I say diplomatically. It's not entirely true, but removing him would create more drama than I want to deal with. Better to work around him than replace him. I just need the authority to do what needs to be done. Harriet nods slowly. And if we can't meet these terms? I stand up from the table. Then I wish you the best with the Rockland situation. Victor starts to protest, but I'm already walking toward the door. Let them sit with that for a while. I've got a go-kart to test drive with my son. Behind me, I hear Harriet's voice. Victor, stay here. We need to talk. The door closes behind me with a very satisfying click. Friday morning, I submitted my 2-week notice. I walk it directly to Harriet's office, bypassing Victor completely. Her assistant waves me in immediately. Harriet reads the letter without expression, then looks up at me. This seems premature, she says. I've given it a lot of thought, I tell her. Steelmark is a good company, but I don't think there's a path forward for me here. She sets the letter down carefully. We discussed terms yesterday. We discussed possibilities, I correct. I need to make a decision based on what's actually available, not what might happen someday. Harriet studies my face for a long moment. I can practically see her doing the math. How much is it worth to keep the Rockland contract? How much revenue loss can they absorb if I actually leave and take my knowledge with me? What if I could guarantee the terms we discussed, she asks. In writing? In writing. I pretend to consider it. I need to see the actual offer letter. Details about authority, compensation, reporting structure. By the end of business today, she says. And the Chicago position is still open, I remind her gently. Harriet's smile is razor thin. I'm sure it is. Walking out of her office, I pass Victor in the hallway. He looks like he hasn't slept in days. Elias, can we talk? He asks. Sure, I say, checking my watch. I've got about 10 minutes before the Rockland situation gets worse. His face crumbles a little more. Monday morning arrives with an official offer letter on my desk. Director of Rail Operations, salary doubled, direct report to Harriet Kane, full hiring authority, and a company car. Victor's signature is at the bottom as a witness, and I can imagine how much he enjoyed signing it. The Rockland crisis has escalated over the weekend. Their freight manager called Harriet directly on Sunday, threatening to not just cancel the contract, but to actively discourage other companies from working with Steelmark. Word of mouth in the rail industry travels fast. I find Victor in his office looking defeated. Congratulations, he says without looking up from his desk. Thank you, I replied. No gloating, no victory speeches. Just professional acknowledgement. I couldn't afford to lose you, he admits quietly. I know that now. I sat down across from his desk. For 5 years, I've imagined what it would feel like to have this conversation. Now that it's happening, I feel more tired than triumphant. You never asked what I was actually doing, I told him. You just knew it was getting done. Victor finally looks at me. I thought you were happy being the fix-it guy. Nobody's happy being invisible, I say. The announcement goes out that afternoon. Several people stopped by to congratulate me, including some who barely acknowledged my existence last week. Funny how a title changes people's perception of your worth. Tyrell from Freight Scheduling grins when he hears the news. Does this mean we'll finally get to see those famous maps everyone talks about? Better than that, I tell him. You're going to help me build new ones. My first week as Director of Rail Operations, I start by doing something Victor never thought to do. I ask my team what they actually need to do their jobs better. Tyrell has been stuck doing manual freight calculations that should be automated. Maya in procurement knows which vendors are reliable and which ones are always late, but nobody ever asked her opinion when making contracts. Jace the machinist has ideas for improving maintenance efficiency that would save thousands annually. I pull all 3 of them into my new office, the glass-walled room I used to stare at longingly. Here's how this is going to work, I tell them. You three are my operations team now. Tyrell, you're a freight coordination supervisor. Maya, you're vendor relations manager. Jace, you're head of maintenance operations. Their faces show a mix of excitement and confusion. What about our current positions? Maya asks. We're hiring replacements for the basic work. I say. You're moving up to jobs that actually use your brains. For the first time in years, I see people light up about coming to work. These are the employees Victor overlooked because they weren't loud or political enough to get his attention. Now they're getting the recognition their skills deserve. First priority is fixing Rockland, I continued. But we're doing it right this time. No more Band-Aid solutions. I unlock my desk drawer and pull out 5 years' worth of handwritten maps. Time to turn my invisible knowledge into something the whole team can use and improve. We spend the next 2 weeks digitizing my rail maps into a comprehensive operations database. Not just the emergency fixes and workarounds, but the underlying logic of why each solution works. Tyrell has a natural talent for systems thinking. He takes my handwritten freight routing notes and builds them into a dynamic scheduling program that automatically adjusts for track maintenance and weather delays. What used to take me an hour of manual calculations now happens in minutes. Maya creates vendor reliability scores based on 5 years of my unofficial observations. She identifies 3 suppliers that have been costing us money and 2 alternatives that could improve our delivery times by 30%. Jace documents every machine quirk and maintenance shortcut I've discovered, then starts training other mechanics on the real fixes instead of the official procedures that don't actually work. The Rockland freight situation resolves itself once we implement the new systems. Their freight starts flowing smoothly again, and their manager calls to compliment our improved efficiency. Victor watches all of this from a distance. He still holds meetings and writes reports, but everyone knows the real operational decisions are coming from my office now. He's become middle management in the truest sense, in the middle, but not actually managing anything critical. Harriet stops by my office Thursday afternoon. The board is impressed with the turnaround, she says. Rockland just extended their contract for 3 more years. Good to hear, I reply. We're just getting started. 3 months into the new role, we're running smoother than Steelmark has ever run. Overtime costs are down 40% because we're preventing problems instead of reacting to them. Customer complaints have dropped to almost 0. Even our safety ratings have improved because Jace's maintenance programs catch issues before they become accidents. The rail industry magazine Freight Weekly calls asking for an interview about our operational improvements. I agree, but insist that Tyrell, Maya, and Jace are included in the article. How did you turn things around so quickly? The reporter asks during our interview. We promoted the people who were already doing the work, I explained. The knowledge was here. It just wasn't being recognized or utilized properly. The article runs with the headline Steelmark's Hidden Talent Revolution. My name appears in the first paragraph, but the real focus is on the team and our systematic approach to rail operations. Victor's name appears nowhere in the article. When the magazine hits the industry circulation, my phone starts ringing. Other rail companies want to know how we're achieving our efficiency numbers. Equipment vendors ask about partnering with us on new systems. A rail logistics conference invites me to be a keynote speaker. For 5 years, I was the ghost in Steelmark's machine. Now I'm becoming the face of modern rail operations. The invisible man has become very, very visible. 6 months after my promotion, Harriet calls me into another boardroom meeting. This time, it's not about a crisis. It's about opportunity. The board voted last night, she tells me, sliding a folder across the mahogany table. We're creating a new position, Vice President of Rail Operations. You'd oversee all rail logistics for the entire Midwest region, not just Cleveland. I open the folder and scan the offer. The salary increase is substantial, but more importantly, the scope of authority is exactly what I've been building toward. There's a condition, Harriet continues. The board wants to see your operations model implemented at our other facilities. Can your system scale? With the right team, yes, I say. Tyrell, Maya, and Jace would need to travel to each location for setup and training. Whatever you need, she agrees. And Victor? I ask. Harriet's expression becomes carefully neutral. Victor has decided to pursue other opportunities. He submitted his resignation this morning. I nod. I'm not surprised. Watching someone else get credit for results he used to claim probably became unbearable. He actually recommended you for the VP position in his exit interview, Harriet adds. Said you were the best operations mind he'd ever worked with. That is surprising. Maybe Victor learned something about leadership after all. I accept the position, I tell Harriet. The VP announcement hits the industry like a small earthquake. Within a week, 3 competing rail companies try to recruit me with increasingly ridiculous offers. A rail consulting firm wants me to be their senior partner. A technology company asks me to advise on their new logistics software. I turn them all down. I've got something more valuable than money now. A team that trusts me and a company that finally understands my worth. Danny asks me about it over dinner. Dad, why didn't you take that job in Chicago? They offered more money. Money isn't everything, I tell him. Sometimes winning means staying put and proving your point. My wife Lisa smiles at that. She remembers the years when I'd come home frustrated and invisible. Now I come home energized and purposeful. Besides, I add, I've got work to finish here. The truth is, I've built something at Steelmark that's bigger than just my own career. Tyrell is talking about going back to school for an engineering degree. Maya is developing vendor management training programs. Jace is designing custom maintenance equipment that could revolutionize rail operations. We're not just fixing problems anymore. We're creating solutions that the entire industry will eventually adopt. That's a legacy worth more than any salary increase. 1 year after that horrible meeting where Victor called me not leadership material, I'm standing in front of 200 rail industry executives at the National Freight Conference in Chicago. The same Chicago where I could have taken that other job. My presentation is titled Invisible Infrastructure: How Hidden Knowledge Drives Rail Efficiency. The audience includes CEOs, operations directors, and logistics managers from across the country. How many of you have employees whose knowledge exists nowhere but in their heads? I ask the crowd. Nearly every hand goes up. How many of you know who those employees are? About half the hands stay up. And how many of you have asked those employees what they think you should do differently? Less than a quarter of the hands remain raised. I click to my next slide, showing Steelmark's efficiency improvements over the past year. The numbers speak for themselves. The most expensive mistake you can make is undervaluing the people who already understand your system. I continue. The second most expensive mistake is losing those people because you failed to recognize their value. After the presentation, a line of executives wants to talk with me. Business cards pile up on the podium. 3 different companies offer me consulting contracts on the spot. But the conversation that matters most comes from a young operations manager who reminds me of myself 5 years ago. How do I get my boss to listen to my ideas? She asks. Document everything, I tell her. Build your expertise where everyone can see it. And when the crisis comes, and it always does, be ready to step up or step out. She nods, understanding exactly what I mean. 2 years after my promotion, Steelmark Rail Systems is the most efficient rail logistics hub in the Midwest. Our operational model has been implemented at 6 other facilities. Tyrell now manages the entire freight coordination network. Maya runs vendor relations for the whole company. Jace leads a team of 20 maintenance specialists. Victor has landed a position with a smaller rail company in Denver. According to industry gossip, he's struggling to replicate the efficiency numbers he achieved at Steelmark. Turns out those results weren't transferable because they were never really his. I don't take any satisfaction in his difficulties. If anything, I hope he learns to recognize and develop the hidden talent at his new company. Maybe our difficult relationship taught him something valuable about leadership. The rail maps that started this whole transformation have evolved into something I never imagined. What began as my personal documentation system is now the foundation for a software platform that 3 other companies have licensed. The invisible work that Victor never appreciated has become an industry standard. My son Danny is a junior in high school now, talking about studying mechanical engineering in college. I want to build systems like you do, Dad, he tells me. But better. That's exactly what I want to hear. Build on what exists, make it better, and never let anyone tell you that your work doesn't matter. The phone call comes on a Thursday afternoon. Harriet's assistant says the board wants to see me in an emergency meeting. My first thought is that something has gone wrong with one of our contracts. Instead, I walk into the boardroom to find champagne, and a room full of board members applauding. "Congratulations, Elias," the board chairman says, raising his glass. "Steelmark Rail Systems has just been acquired by Continental Freight Industries. The acquisition was based primarily on our operational efficiency and innovative logistics systems. The sale price is substantial enough that every employee gets a significant bonus. My bonus alone is more than I made in my first 3 years at Steelmark combined. The acquiring company wants to retain all current leadership," Harriet adds. "They're particularly interested in expanding your operational model to their entire network. Continental Freight operates rail logistics across 12 states. If they implement our systems company-wide, the efficiency improvements could transform the entire industry. They've offered you the position of Chief Operations Officer for the entire Continental network," Harriet continues. "You'd be overseeing rail logistics from Texas to Montana. I think about that empty office I used to stare at longingly. Now I'm being offered authority over an empire that spans half the country. I accept," I say. The champagne tastes like victory. The acquisition announcement makes the front page of Freight Weekly. The article focuses on Steelmark's revolutionary efficiency improvements and includes interviews with several board members who credit the transformation to innovative leadership and hidden talent recognition. Victor's name doesn't appear anywhere in the article. My name appears 17 times. The rail industry is small enough that word travels fast. By the end of the week, I'm getting congratulations calls from executives across the country. 3 universities invite me to speak at their business schools. A publishing company wants me to write a book about operational leadership. The most meaningful call comes from Tyrell, who's been offered a position as regional freight director in Continental's expansion plan. "I never thought I'd have opportunities like this," he tells me. 2 years ago, I was just doing manual freight calculations." "You were always capable of more," I remind him. "You just needed someone to notice." Maya and Jace are also being promoted into Continental's management structure. The team that Victor overlooked is now running logistics operations across multiple states. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Victor had said yes to my original promotion request. Would I have been satisfied with a supervisor position? Would I have stopped pushing for real change? Probably. Which means his rejection was the best thing that ever happened to my career. 5 years after Victor flipped through my promotion request like junk mail, I'm sitting in a corner office overlooking downtown Chicago. Chief Operations Officer, Continental Freight Industries. My operational model is being implemented across a network that handles 30% of the Midwest's rail freight. The phone rings. My assistant tells me it's Victor Lorne, calling from Denver. "Victor," I say, genuinely curious about why he's reaching out. "Elias, congratulations on the Continental position," he says. His voice sounds tired. "I heard about it in the industry newsletter." "Thank you. How are things in Denver?" There's a long pause. "Challenging," he admits. "I'm trying to implement some of the efficiency improvements you developed at Steelmark, but I'm having trouble replicating the results." I'm not surprised. The systems worked because of the people who built and maintained them, not because of the procedures themselves. "Would you be willing to consult on our operations?" he asks. I know it's a long shot, but the request hangs in the air between us. 5 years ago, this man told me I wasn't leadership material. Now he's asking for my help to save his career. "I'll have Maya give you a call," I tell him. "She's the best vendor relations manager in the industry. If anyone can help you streamline operations, it's her." After I hang up, I realize something has shifted in how I see that whole experience. Victor wasn't evil or deliberately malicious. He was just a manager who didn't know how to recognize potential in people who didn't look like traditional leaders. His failure to see my value was ultimately my opportunity to prove it.